It could be terrible, and it could be great. It's not clear.
Right.
But one thing is for sure, we will not control it.
Go is arguably the most complex board game in existence. Its goal is simple: surround more territory than your opponent. This game has been played by humans for the past 2,500 years and is thought to be the oldest board game still being played today. However, it's not only humans that are playing this game now. In 2016, Google DeepMind's AlphaGo beat 18-time world champion Lee Sedol in 4 out of 5 games. Now, normally a computer beating a human at a game like chess or checkers wouldn't be that impressive, but Go is different. Go cannot be solved by brute force. Go cannot be predicted. There are over 10 to the 170 moves possible in Go. To put that into perspective, there are only 10 to the 80 atoms in the observable universe. AlphaGo was trained using data from real human Go games. It ran through millions of games and learned the techniques used and even made up new ones that no one had ever seen. And this is very impressive alone. However, what many people don't know is that only a year after AlphaGo's victory over Lee Sedol, a brand new AI called AlphaGo Zero beat the original AlphaGo. Not in 4 out of 5 games, not in 5 out of 5 games, not in 10 out of 10 games, but beat AlphaGo 100-0, 100 games in a row. The most impressive part? It learned how to play with zero human interaction. This technique is more powerful than any previous version. Why? It isn't restricted to human knowledge. No data was given, no historical figures were given. With just the bare bones rules, AlphaGo Zero surpassed the previous AlphaGo in only 40 days of learning. In only 40 days, it surpassed over 2,500 years of strategy and knowledge. It only played against itself and is now regarded as the best Go player in the world, even though it isn't human. But wait, if this AI learned how to play without any human interaction, made up strategies of its own, and then beat us with those strategies, then that means there's more non-human knowledge about Go than there is human. And if we continue to develop artificial intelligence, then that means there's going to be more and more non-human intelligence. Eventually, there's going to be a point where we represent the minority of intelligence, maybe even a very minuscule amount. That's fine though, we can just turn it off, right? It's a thought, but think. When modern day humans began to take over the planet, why didn't the chimps and Neanderthals turn us off? If this artificial intelligence becomes super intelligent and learns through and is connected to the internet, well, we can't just shut down the entire internet, there's no off switch. So what happens if we end up stuck with AI that is constantly and exponentially getting smarter than we are? What if it gets to a point that us humans get in the way, and the AI hits the off switch on humanity? When people think of AI, they tend to think of super intelligent AI. AI that serves the human race but could also end us at a moment's notice. But is this really going to happen? Pop culture, mostly movies, tend to depict AI not as benevolent creations, but rather as robots with malicious intent. Except for Tarzan in Interstellar, he's pretty cool.
Yeah, you can use it to find your way back into the ship after I blow you out the airlock.
There's a lot more to AI than you might think. There's a lot more types that serve different purposes. Artificial narrow intelligence, also known as weak AI, is the only form of artificial intelligence that humanity has created so far. It makes this sound kind of bad, but trust me, it does a really good job at what it's supposed to do. Narrow AI is AI that is created for the sole purpose of handling one task. It's the kind of AI that AlphaGo is. Narrow AI is good at speech and image recognition, and also at playing games like chess or Go, or even pretty complex games like Dota 2. At the International 2017 World Championship, OpenAI's artificial intelligence destroyed pro player Dendi 2-0. But much like AlphaGo Zero, it wasn't taught how to play the game. It played out millions of years worth of 1-versus-1 matches against itself and learned on its own. It started out barely knowing how to walk, and eventually as time went on, it surpassed human level skill. If you use Spotify, you'll see that it creates daily mixes for you based on the music you listen to. Amazon learns from it, teaches itself your buying habits to suggest you new products. But it seems like a common reoccurrence where these AI teach themselves how to do the task at hand. How is that even possible? Well, through something called machine learning. Machine learning is the science of trying to get computers to learn and think like we humans do. Machine learning is essentially the same way that babies learn. We start off as small screaming sacks of meat, but over time, we improve our learning. We take in more data and more information from observations and interactions, and most of the time we end up pretty smart. The most popular technique out there to make a computer mimic a human brain is known as a neural network. Our brains are pretty good at solving problems, but each neuron in your brain is only responsible for solving a very minuscule part of any problem. Think of it like an assembly line, where each neuron in your brain has a certain job to do in order to completely solve a problem. Let's make a simple example of a neural network. In order to say that someone is alive, they have to either have a pulse or they must be breathing, but not necessarily both at the same time. This yellow dot represents a neuron in a neural network. It functions just like a neuron in your brain does. It takes in information and then gives an output. If this neuron takes in the information that says, hey, this person has a pulse and is breathing, then the neuron deciphers this information and says, okay, this person is alive. It learns to analyze situations where the human would be declared alive, if it's breathing or has a pulse, and situations where the human would be dead, where neither of those is true. That's essentially a bare bones explanation of how it works. Of course, no neural network is really this simple. Many have millions of parameters and are much more complex than just this one layered network. The world is full of sounds and visuals and just data in general, and we take in all of this to form our view of reality. However, as more and more complex topics show up with more and more data, it becomes harder and harder for humans to do this analysis on their own. This is where machine learning comes in handy. Machines can not only analyze data given to it, but also learn from it and adapt its own view of it. Let's go back to AlphaGo Zero. In only 40 days, it surpassed thousands of years of strategy and knowledge and even made up some of its own strategies. But how did it do all of this so quickly? Biological neurons in your brain operate at about 200 Hz. That's proved to be fine for us, but modern transistors operate at over 2 GHz, an entire order of magnitude faster. Those neurons in your brain travel through what are known as axons, and they travel at about 100 meters per second, which is pretty fast and gives us pretty good reaction time. But it's only about a third as fast as the speed of sound. Computers, however, can transmit information at the speed of light, or 300 million meters per second. So there's quite a big difference between our brain's capabilities and a computer's. In just 1 week, a computer can do 20,000 years worth of human-level research or simulations or anything it is trained to do. A brain has to fit inside your head. There's a limit to how much space it can take up, but a computer could fill an entire room or even an entire building. Now obviously weak AI doesn't require an entire server room to run. Like we saw with OpenAI, it only took a USB stick. But for more intelligent AI, it may require much more power. Artificial General Intelligence, or AGI, is AI with more than a single purpose. AGI is almost at or equal to human-level intelligence, and this is where we're trying to get to. But there's a problem. The more we search into it, the harder and harder it seems to be able to achieve. Think about how you perceive things. When someone asks you a complicated question, you have to sort through a ton of unrelated thoughts and observations, and articulate a concise response to that question. This isn't exactly the easiest thing for a computer to achieve. See, humans aren't able to process information at the speed of light like computers can, but we can plan things. We can think of smart ways to solve problems without having to brute force through every option. Getting a computer to human-level thinking is hard. We humans can create things, we invent things. We create societies and play games and laugh. These are all very hard things to teach a computer. How can you teach a computer to create something that doesn't exist or hasn't even been thought of? And what would be its incentive to do so? I believe AGI, or strong AI, is the most important artificial intelligence to be created, and here's why. Machine learning is exponential, meaning that it starts off rather slow, but there's a certain tipping point where things start to speed up drastically. The difference between weak AI and strong AI is millions of times larger than the difference between strong AI and super intelligent AI. Once we have the artificial general intelligence that can function like a human being, for the most part at least, it may help us reach super intelligence level in only a few months, or perhaps even weeks. But here comes another big problem. See, many people tend to see intelligence on a graph like this. We have maybe an ant here, a mouse at about here, the average human here, and maybe Einstein right here just above. If you asked most people where a super intelligent AI would lie on this graph, most would probably put it somewhere around here. But this just isn't the case. Although AI might not be at human level intelligence yet, it will be one day, and it won't stop at human level. It'll most likely just zoom past and continue getting on more and more advanced until, eventually, the graph looks something like this. This is what is known as the technological singularity, where artificial intelligence becomes so advanced to the point where there's an extreme explosion of new knowledge and information, some that might not even be able to be understood by humans. If we make a super intelligent AI, that AI would be able to improve upon itself, and in turn get smarter in a shorter amount of time, which means that this new and improved AI could do the same thing. It continues to repeat this process, doing it faster and faster each time. The first recreation may take a month, the second a week, a third a day, and this keeps going until it's billions of times smarter than all of humanity.